Let's get into the news. We've waited on this nugget long enough. Number one, after much drama, Sony has reversed course. It has decided not to close the digital PlayStation stores for PlayStation 3 and Vita after all. At least not yet. Word comes by way of a surprisingly contrite, albeit short letter on the official PlayStation blog from PlayStation CEO and President Jim Ryan, who noted in part, quote, "Recently, we notified players that PlayStation Store for PS3 and PS Vita devices was planned to end this summer. Upon further reflection, however, it's clear that we made the wrong decision here. So today, I'm happy to say that we will be keeping the PlayStation Store operational for PS3 and PS Vita devices. PSP commerce functionality will retire on July 2nd as planned," end quote. Ryan states that the intention behind Sony's decision was to move resources into newer areas while retiring harder to support locales like PS3's and Vita's stores. But don't get too excited, because it's nothing necessarily permanent, though nothing truly is. That's because, according to the letter, you will be, quote, "able to continue purchasing classic games on PS3 and PS Vita for the foreseeable future," end quote. So that's that. PSP is shutting down after all, and PS3 and Vita will remain for the time being. It's important to note that it's unclear if Sony is lifting the end dates for PS3 and Vita support, though it seems unlikely they will budge there. We remain hopeful as of the time of recording, PS3's and Vita's respective PlayStation stores launched alongside the products themselves, which came out in 2006 and 2011. So just to reiterate, the stores will remain up indefinitely. We don't know yet, and we've reached out, my developer Lilymo has reached out to Sony because we want to release our next game on Vita. We're unclear if they're lifting the cap on that or not. My assumption is that they aren't. Before we get into all the letters we got about this, Chris, what did you think of this news? This was truly surprising, I think, and maybe a good sign for the Sony listening a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's good. It makes me feel like they're actually paying attention. It's interesting because this is, Xbox just did this too with the whole Xbox Live Gold price hike that they reneged after, that they backed off on after outcry. And I feel like it was a very similar situation here where enough people made enough of a big stink about it for them to actually like reevaluate their decision. And this is why it's important. By the way, this is why it's important to criticize these companies when they make stupid calls, because sometimes you might get what you want, and this is one of those situations. And we've had a couple of these situations with other, developers and other companies this year. So, I think it's great news. Ultimately these stores aren't going to last forever. They will eventually, like the foreseeable future, like sounds kind of nice, but there's just no way they're going to keep PS3 operational for like a considerably longer amount of time. Like I feel like maybe you got like, I assume like a year or two, like I don't foresee these stores staying open for too much longer, but it's good that they listened, because I think the time frame was just way too short. Like you can't shut down a storefront like that with 2 months notice. Like I think it's just unacceptable.
I agree.
Yeah.
Chris, I'm sorry, Dustin, what do you make of the of this reversal?
I want to focus on 3 interesting points from Jim Ryan's letter that really stuck out to me very quickly.
Please.
The first one is that at the beginning he says, "Upon further reflection, however, it's clear we made the wrong decision here." I like this, basically coming out saying, hey, it's not like, oh, we decided to change our mind. No, he straight up said, we were wrong. This is important, okay? We're coming off of something like, this is a different scenario, but Bethesda never apologized for the state of Fallout 76. On stage, Todd Howard was like, we got some things wrong. I can't remember exactly, but they never were like, we screwed up. And I think it's important for a face of a company to be honest, like we were wrong, and it doesn't make you look weak. It doesn't, it's not a negative at all. And I think it's respectful to your audience to be like, yeah, we're going to change things.
Absolutely.
The second thing in here is I found it really funny where they're talking about, we decided to end it because of a number of factors, including commerce support challenges for older devices and the ability for us to focus on more of our resources on newer devices where a majority of our gamers are playing on. It's like, okay, you had to put in that little bit that's like, well,
that's what I was gonna say. It seemed to me that they were almost like, well, fine,
Yeah.
So we got the apology, but it's also like, well, fuck you. This is your fault because you're not even fucking using it. Like, it's a weird like
very Jim
whiplash.
Ryan. Yeah, definitely.
And the final point is just that actions speak louder than words, always, right? But at the end of the letter, Jim Ryan does say, "I'm glad that we can keep this piece of history, of our history, alive for gamers to enjoy while we continue to create blah, 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 blah." So we see Jim Ryan acknowledge history.
Sure. Well, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
It's because usually he hates everything that's old. But I love that breakdown, Dustin, because I did take some of those salient points away as well, although it did seem very Jim Ryan-esque, where it's like, well, we made the wrong choice. I appreciate it. You know, we wanted to, because we know what they were thinking. We already went over this. Like, they have all these vectors open for attack. They don't need to keep all of these things open. They're not making a lot of money on it. But I am a little concerned about the indefinite nature of this. And actually, this gets into something. We have a few questions from the audience here that I wanted to get into that will allow us to explore this a little bit more. The first one comes from Josh Manzanares, who says, "Hey guys, with Sony making the absolutely correct decision to not take down the legacy stores, it makes me think that they have no plan for backwards compatibility on PS5. Do you think Sony made a ton of money on panic sales, making them realize they wanted to play that people wanted to play this content? I play PS1 classics on my Vita more than I play my PS4, and I buy them pretty regularly, but I know that's a tiny sliver of the general ecosystem." So I feel like there's multiple angles of this. First of all, the conspiratorial thing, right? That Sony did this on purpose. There's just no way that Sony did this on purpose. There's no money to be made here. There's no goodwill to be earned here. But Chris, I am concerned about Josh's point, because this is what I thought as well. I'm like, this means that there is no solution in the pipeline for PS3 backwards compatibility, which is to be expected, but kind of disappointing. What did you make of that?
Yeah, no, I think it definitely like confirmed that to me. You wouldn't, you know, even just the way that they kind of announced their backing down on their initial choice. It was like, oh, we're excited to keep this part of our history alive, which means it's like they think that that's the only way to do that. It kind of comes across that way. It's like, oh, so there was really just, you guys had no intention at all of like fixing this problem that very clearly a lot of people care about. It's disappointing. It's disappointing that the only way to access these classic titles is to own a machine that is likely going to explode. If these consoles weren't made to last this long. They just weren't. Like, a lot of these things are going to start blowing up soon, or like frying, or just like the PSP's batteries recently started exploding in the last couple of years. So it's like, you know, these things have a shelf life, and you know, it sucks that you have to get your hands on ancient, you know, tech just to experience stuff that really should be really easily accessible in 2021. There's really no good excuse for it, but you know, it doesn't surprise me. I wish I could say it did, but this is to be expected, kind of. You know, take your victories where you can, I guess. You know, these stores are still open, and you have access to these. I'm curious what happens to the patches that vanished.
I don't know if that was like, I was thinking about that. I'm like, was that a coincidence, or were they starting to fuck around behind the scenes and then they stopped, you know? But like, why would you? That was the thing with the patching, where I'm like, why would the patches just start coming down like that? I don't know. We don't really know what they were communicating to their partners. We didn't get any communication. I mean, we literally got communication the same time as everyone else, but I'm sure their bigger partners might have known. And it's worth noting that their bigger partners might be really eager to get this shit down too. So we saw with Ubisoft, they're still supporting like Rainbow Six games on PS3, and they were probably like, God almighty, we can finally. I saw that they were still supporting a Tom Clancy game on PS2. I wish I knew which one it was. And I was like, what? So they're probably like really stoked to get rid of this legacy stuff, but they obviously can't now. Although a lot of that stuff lives on Sony servers. But Dustin, I wanted to ask this next one to you, because I am curious. This one is kind of funny to me, because I know a lot of people got burned like this, but I don't know why people were so eager to start buying things already. Trent Miller wrote in and said, "Hey buds, am I the only one who feels kind of slighted by Sony keeping the stores open? I mean, I am happy that they will stay open, but I'm also kind of bummed because I purchased a bunch of games that I don't know if I'll ever get to because I thought they were shutting down." This seems to have happened. Actually, Micah my girlfriend went and bought Tales of Hearts R on Vita, the physical copy, on eBay for about $100 which I still think is a pretty good price. I don't think it's going to get any cheaper than that, but she was, people were starting to get the wheels in motion, being like, all right, well, but I said it last week. I'm like, why are people scared about physical games? Number one, doesn't make any sense. And number two, why weren't, like, I was going to be like on August 1st or something, right? Or August 15th, I'll go and buy everything. But why were people already doing this? That was the biggest confusion to me. Like, weren't you going to wait and see if they had some sort of solution?
Yeah.
Even if it was outside?
Yeah. Like on especially digitally, like, they're not going to like price hike on the PlayStation store. You could just wait and see how this thing shakes up. I didn't buy anything because I kind of assumed that something would happen. Because the outcry was pretty huge, and also just like it seemed to me like they didn't really plan this well. It seemed to me like, okay, 2 months from now it's done. Like it didn't seem like it was obviously an official decision, but it also felt kind of haphazard and kind of quick, and like they didn't really think much through. So I don't know what to tell you. You can't feel that slighted if you made the choice to just jump on this weird bidding war, but.
I totally agree. Especially because I'm not going for physical games anyway. So like, I'm like, all right, I was going to make like I have a shit ton of games on PS3 and Vita, but there are things I'm missing, and I was going to make a comprehensive list for August. But Dustin, did you buy anything in preparation?
The only thing I bought, ironically, is Tomba 2 because...
Oh, the PS1 classic.
Yes. Yeah. Which here's what happened. I'm trying to piece this together live because I remember I saw a tweet, which I think this is the tweet. It's from Tweet Vita Review. With this got shared around, and I saw some people sharing it that they said, I was going to purchase some more PS1 classics, but seems some of them were silently delisted within the last couple of days.
Yeah, I saw that.
Now, there's a follow-up later that some of them were only on the PS3 store, but some of these ones from the very mysterious Monkey Paw Games were delisted or whatever.
Oh, yeah, we talked about those guys.
Yeah, so weird. But so I think that a tweet like this, or if other people tweeted similar type news, this is what caused the panic, is that we heard news of games getting delisted, whether or not it was a misunderstanding or not. People saw that info and reacted. Right. And we saw PS3 patches disappear as well. So yeah, I totally get someone panicking and starting to buy stuff because the writing on the wall was that some of the shit could disappear at any moment. So if you want it, what's the difference between buying it now and in a few weeks, since nobody thought that Sony was going to reverse their decision based on their history?
Yeah. I think people just got to settle in a little bit, because like I feel like this almost got weird, because I'll just reiterate, like, why was there a run on physical games? It doesn't make sense. Like, they're not making physical games for PS3 anymore. They haven't in years. So like, why are people suddenly going and buying them? Like, those games are going to have an aftermarket regardless. That was the bigger confusion for me, Dustin.
The thing is, Colin, I think just to my take of the game thing is that people see the headlines about Vita shutting down. Vita is in the discussion. PS3 is in the discussion. You have some people that are then lightly interested in buying some of these games because they're thinking about it. You also have the opportunists that are like, I have these games.
Yes.
And so,
true enough.
Anytime
very good.
There's like a feeding frenzy, right? Where you get, like, I was talking to my friend Phil. Right now there's this craze going on with Pokemon cards and sports cards. And I'm like, it's a chicken or egg situation. Is it valuable because... Is it a perceived value in people's heads? Are they actually rare? Do people actually want these for the product, or do they want them to resell them? Do you know what I mean? And it becomes this crazy chaos.
Capitalism, baby.
So, and I think that was the case with the PS3 and the physical Vita games.
Well, that's a great point, in that I wasn't thinking that, like, because you can see all the eBay stats and I look at them sometimes, but like, there was probably a massive spike in PS3 and Vita games. Prices went down probably really quickly because there was so much more stock, and then they went back up. So, that's an interesting point. I never really thought about that, but yeah, that's capitalism in action, I guess. But speaking of this, Ian wrote into us, because this was obviously always my dream, but it's not going to happen. He says, we know now that the PS3 and Vita stores are staying live for the foreseeable future. But before that news broke, many were hoping for Sony to announce a huge sale on Vita games. I know I definitely would have partaken in that sale, but let's be honest. Sony was never going to have that huge sale, right? This is Sony we're talking about. Digital Vita game prices have been the same for years and years. I don't think there was a chance in hell that we were going to get a good Vita sale. That said, here's to the store staying live either way. I hope you and the boys are well. So this is a really interesting point too, because I had said, guys, that wouldn't it be cool if a more coherent Sony was like, we're going to fucking cut prices on PS3 and Vita 90%, you know, like I would have loved something like that to happen, but there's complications for that. Number one, if your games are cross-buy or on other platforms, then you're really starting to undercut yourself on current gen platforms. If your game's on PC, for instance, and PS3, and you're charging $19.99 on Steam, then you're charging like $2 on PS3, it creates like a huge problem for you. So I don't think that was going to happen. So I don't want people to feel like they're missing out on that, but I will say that Lilimo would have gladly participated in that, even if it would have been incoherent. Like our games would have been $10 on Xbox, but $1 on Vita. It's like, fuck it. But now we don't need to do that anymore. And I actually think that never really behooved Sony, because if they wanted to get as much money out of this, squeeze this orange as much as possible, then they're not going to lower prices. They're actually going to keep prices exactly the same. And Ian makes a good point. Vita prices are stubborn as fuck on the PlayStation Store. I actually went, and I couldn't believe it, because I went and bought God of War Collection on Vita last week, because we're doing God of War, the original one, on Knockback soon. And I have the Platinum on PS3 already, but I wanted to get it on Vita. And I was shocked. It was only $15, because I went to the store and I'm like, this is going to literally cost me $40. I know it. You know, and I know this bullshit, because it's like when I went and bought Ys 8 last year, it was like $15 on PS4 and $40 on Vita. And I'm like, all right. So anyway, boys, we'll see how it all shakes out, but it is a great Phoenix down, let's say, for our beloved PlayStation 3 and PlayStation Vita. And we're very excited about that. I do expect, though, that the devil is in the details, and that these stores are coming down.
Now, Colin.
Yeah, please.
Question. Okay. Sony developers, right?
Right.
Talking to Barry. Barry's tweeted. There's currently no information on if games are going to be able to be put on the store still. Yeah,
like I said, we don't know. I mean, we're cut. PS3 stuff is cut off in June, and I think, and no one's releasing PS3 games, but that's for like patches. And then Vita games, I think, are cut off in early July. And there are a lot of people asking, like, if we need to know. Like, this is the other part where, like, we actually reached out to our intermediary at PlayStation on the development side, and they don't know.
That's what I was hoping you would say, because I didn't know if that was shareable information.
No. I mean, I don't know why it wouldn't be. They don't know. I mean, we asked and they don't know. I mean, as soon as we know, we'll tell everyone.
Why don't they know?
That would be a secret.
Why wouldn't that person know? Like, what is going on at Sony that they're like, hey, we're going to make all these big announcements, and a very key detail, we're not going to tell the reps that, or maybe they haven't decided. Like, what's going on?
This was a decision made by looking at spreadsheets. I mean, that's obvious, right? Because I know people at Sony that are smart, that are gamers, that would have sat in that meeting and been like, are you sure that you're just going to shut down the PlayStation Vita store? Like, why? And the fact that they're still shutting down the PSP store, it is worth noting the PSP store was ostensibly shut down like 4 years ago. So people are getting really upset about nothing, but they are getting rid of PSP functionality. So that just tells me that they are going to get rid of PS3 functionality. They are going to get rid of Vita functionality. PSP is older than those two devices. So it makes sense that they would shuffle that one out of the door first. So I'm a little nervous about this.
Foreseeable future just means they don't have a date yet. But the date is coming. Like they're not going to keep these things open for long.
Now, can I tell you guys just a pet peeve I have real quick? Just not a pet peeve. That's not even the right terminology, but just a specific annoyance about this situation that I have. And it's not this developer's fault. I want to be clear about that. But there's a developer called Flying Oak that is actually releasing a game called Scourgebringer, which comes out on Vita. It's out on Vita now. And that was scheduled to be the last Vita game. When you download it on the Vita store, it is literally titled The Last Vita Game, like in the download bar. Now, the guys said this, that Sony told them that their game was going to be the last release. Someone over there knows. And I'm just saying right now that like someone is not telling the truth. about who knew what and when. How the fuck would they know? And then why would Sony tell them and not anyone else?
Yeah.
I'm really salty about that. Not because it wasn't us that was told, but because it was like, you can read the cascade of canceled Vita games. There's a lot of them. People are planning on releasing Vita games. Then people are coming back out and saying, look, well, we don't know, and we still want to get our games on Vita. Just fucking talk to us, Sony, please. It's really not that hard. It really isn't. But we're back on the right path, aren't we?